All right, let's get cooking. Welcome to the latest edition of Chin Check Sports Radio. I'm your host, JD. I want to thank you all for taking the time out to join us. And as always, we welcome any suggestions, feedback, comments, and criticisms, which improves the quality of our program, which ultimately improves your listening experience. Before we get started, I want to send all of you thank you for your tremendous support. People are slowly but surely finding out about who we are and what we do. They enjoy and respect the passion with which we speak. But as we always say here at Chin Check Sports Radio, we do this because we love it, as we are simply sharing our passions with you all as we continue to build our listening army to take over the world. Before we begin this particular broadcast, we definitely wanted to say rest in peace, rest in power to Antoine Eccles, who twice challenged for the middleweight championship. You know, if you've been listening to Chin Check Sports Radio, Bernard Hopkins is our favorite fighter, and we watched Antoine Eccles give Bernard Hopkins two tough fights. The first one in December of 1999, a unanimous decision loss, and a rematch in December of 2000, a TKO loss in the 10th round. That was a very tough, foul-filled affair, from body slams to hits in the back of the head. And the one thing that stood out about Antoine Eccles going into those Hopkins fights is pretty much knocking everybody out who he had faced. And Bernard Hopkins once stated that the hardest puncher that he ever been in the ring with was Antoine Eccles. And that was even before he fought Felix Trinidad. So definitely want to say rest in power to Antoine Eccles. Well, folks, this is it. We have been excited for this fight for a while now. This is the biggest fight that can be made in boxing. And of course, for some of you listening to the broadcast, if I sent the link out to some friends, YouTube, you saw the thumbnail that was used. So this is no secret. The biggest fight of the year, the biggest fight that can be made in boxing, has finally come to fruition. It is all set for July 29th between Errol "The Truth" Spence and Terence "Bud" Crawford. Folks, we are definitely excited for this fight, and we definitely want to give kudos to these guys because we have been very critical in their inability to make this fight, because this is pretty much going on a couple years now where they've kind of been circling each other, going back and forth, trading words. Fight was being discussed and it broke down, then it was finalized and then it broke down. So when we started hearing reports and word that the fight was actually finalized and they had a due date, and then we still weren't too sure yet. Then they had their first press conference. So then we realized, oh yeah, this bad boy is really going to happen. So we're definitely excited for this fight, and you know we had to come with our preview of this fight. So kudos to both men for making this fight, for really deciding who's the best, because this is what we want to see. And this has been a pretty good year for boxing. We've had Ryan Garcia versus Tank Davis, Devin Haney versus Lomachenko. We're now getting Spence and Crawford. So this has been a pretty good year in terms of boxing. I know fans on Twitter have been saying, has this been the best year of boxing? We kind of threw in there 2001 and 2002. But nonetheless, this has been an excellent year for us fight fans because we are getting the fights that we want to see. So let's do a quick background on both men. And we'll start with Errol "The Truth" Spence. Folks, Errol "The Truth" Spence stands 5'9" in height with a 72-inch reach, 33 years of age, 28 total fights, 28 wins, no losses, 22 wins by knockout. Errol "The Truth" Spence has a very extensive amateur experience, so let's get to some of his notable fights as a professional. April 16th, 2016, a TKO victory in the 5th round against Chris Algieri, who was once a Manny Pacquiao opponent. May of 2017, a KO in the 11th round to lift the IBF welterweight championship, or the 147-pound championship, from one Kell Brook in England. Now, of course, you have to put things in the proper context. We never ever want to just gloss over stuff. Kell Brook, this is after fighting Triple G, Gennady Golovkin, by moving up to middleweight, getting battered around. So some Spence detractors could make an argument by saying by the time Spence got to him, Kell Brook was already a shot fighter or already a shot-worn fighter. But it should not be looked over the fact that Spence traveled to this man's homeland, and by the way, the big fight they were looking to set up was Kell Brook versus Amir Khan. Those negotiations fell through. Spence, who was a mandatory challenger, then stepped in, went to England, fought a very tough fight, and the 11th round scored knockdowns to win the IBF Welterweight Championship. January of 2018, referee or corner stoppage against Lamont Peterson. Against tough veteran, rugged veteran, one Lamont Peterson. And again, what seems to be a theme in Spence's career, a tough, break you down, physically, then mentally type of attack, scores a knockdown against Lamont Peterson in the 5th round, too much, and they end up stopping the fight. March of 2019, a unanimous decision victory that was going against Mikey Garcia. You have Mikey Garcia, who was moving up a couple of weight classes, decided to take on a challenge. He called Errol Spence out, and that fight took place at AT&T Stadium, or the home of the Dallas Cowboys. September of 2019, a very exciting split decision victory against one Sean Porter. We actually went to a sports bar that night to watch the fight. Of course, you know Sean Porter's style is that always aggressive in your face style. And of course, they were trading rounds back and forth, but we thought at the very end, Spence was starting to pull away. Spence even scored a knockdown on Porter in the 11th round, where we thought that sealed the deal. Unfortunately, right after the Sean Porter fight, being very immature, Spence drove drunk, crashed his vehicle, was ejected from his vehicle. So at this point, we don't know what the future would have held for him. So, of course, being injured in the hospital in December of 2020, his first comeback fight against Danny Garcia, and another unanimous decision victory. Clearly won the fight. It wasn't even close. Again, at AT&T Stadium, the home of the Dallas Cowboys. In April of 2022, a TKO in the 10th round against Yordanis Ugas. And due to a swollen eye that turned out was a fractured orbital bone. So he broke Ugas down to the point where he fractured his man's face, where he had a serious swelling above his eye. So just a bit of the resume of one Errol the True Spence. Also in that fight resume, there was a Manny Pacquiao fight that was set up. We did a preview of that fight, but unfortunately, due to a detached retina, the fight ended up getting canceled. So we never got that fight, which would have been a battle of generations, old lion versus young lion, the previous era versus the current era. Let's go to Terence Bud Crawford. The first fight that brought American fans' attention to Bud Crawford, June of 2014, in a very exciting fight against undefeated Yuriorkis Gamboa, who Gamboa was also moving up in weight class, a KO in the 9th round. Now, what was interesting about that fight, Gamboa was actually winning the earlier rounds. When Crawford decided to switch styles and go to his southpaw style is when he seized control, scored, I believe, 4 or 5 knockdowns in the fight, and of course, Gamboa, being a little bit chinny, fell right into Crawford's path, and Crawford definitely knocked him out in Nebraska, and that's what got people really looking like, hey, this guy's pretty something. November of 2014, a unanimous decision against Ray Beltran. In April 2015, a TKO in the 6th round against Thomas Delarme. February 2016, a TKO in the 5th round against Hank Lundy. July of 2016, a unanimous victory against Victor Postal, where he did score a couple of knockdowns in that fight. 2016, a TKO victory in the 8th round against John Molina. A TKO in the 9th round, June of 2018, against Jeff Horn. 2019, a TKO victory in the 6th round against Amir Khan. November 2020, a TKO victory in the 4th round against Kell Brook. November 2021, so this is 2 years after hiding Spence. Sean Porter, a TKO victory in the 10th round against Sean Porter. And December of 2022. Now, this is after the negotiations fell apart for the November clash of 2022. Porter decided to take a better deal against David Avin. I can't even pronounce his name, folks. I'm not gonna lie to you. A KO in the 6th round, folks. If you actually watch that fight, this guy David AV was a heavy bag with feet, and Crawford looked like he shouldn't even been in the same gym state as this guy, a total whitewash. So now, what does this fight hold? So tell me what does this fight hold? And yes, folks, before you forget, we have not missed Crawford's stats. Crawford standing at 5'8", a 74-inch reach, which is a longer reach than Spence. 39 total fights, 39 wins, 0 losses, and 30 wins by knockout. Now, looking at this fight, Bud Crawford is the betting favorite going into this fight. And we totally understand why. Longer reach, the more exciting fighter. He has a more exciting offense. The ability to switch hit from both sides, generally starting off in an orthodox stance and switching to a southpaw stance. So we give Crawford a lot of credit for that. And Crawford really gets caught in those switches where he switches stance, obviously when he has established distance and range. So we give Crawford credit. He is a much more exciting fighter. Now this goes to Spence's style that is not really all that crowd pleasing. It's just the constant plugging and plodding along, breaking a fighter down, both physically and mentally, namely with the body punches. Spence is an excellent, tremendous body puncher with an excellent jab. Crawford, again, seems to be much more offensive driven. I think he has very underrated footwork. And the other thing about Crawford that we respect his game is his ability to adapt. Now, much like in the mold of Mayweather, and I'm not saying he's Floyd Mayweather, but much like in the mold of Mayweather, he'll take the first few rounds, kind of dissect his opponent, and then goes on the attack. He learns to figure his opponent out and then goes on the attack. So we definitely give Bud Crawford credit in that regard for having that ability to adjust during fights, to take certain weapons away, or to really step up his offense. I don't think conditioning would be an issue for both guys. I think both guys are in great shape. Both guys tend to finish up strong in fights, so I don't think that's even going to be an issue. So how does the fight play out if you're asking Chin Check Sports Radio? Again, we know the world is picking Bud Crawford to win the fight, and I think the majority of fans are picking Bud Crawford to win the fight. I know people, of course, being a betting favorite, but we're going to pick Errol Spence Jr. to win this fight. Oh, stop the music. And we're picking Errol Spence Jr. because we think Spence has a slightly better resume, 1. He's a naturally bigger fighter, 2. He's been a welterweight longer while Bud is coming up from the lightweight division. We also feel that we don't think Bud has faced anybody who's going to attack him the way that Errol Spence Jr. is. Now, even though Bud is a much more offensively exciting fighter, but Spence is no slouch himself. He can box. He does move his head very well. And he's going to hit Bud to the body. He's definitely going to hit Bud to the body, and that's why I think he's going to break Bud down. Now, this fight is going to be some very close rounds to score because judges are going to have to make the decision where do you give credit for the body punches or do you give credit for the shoulder punches? So that's why I think where, the judges are going to have a hard time scoring this fight. We're going to pick Spence by unanimous decision. We can even say a split decision. I don't think now some people have said a late round knockout. That's possible, but I'm not sure about that. But of course, this is boxing. Anything can happen, and that's why we have a great time discussing these fights. So we're going to pick Errol Spence Jr. to win this fight. Again, he is the natural welterweight. I think he's going to attack Bud's body. And unlike other fighters who pretty much try to hang on against Bud Crawford, I think Spence is constantly going to go after him. He's going to try to smother Bud. And again, Bud does utilize footwork, distance, and range, but he's going to get hit to the body a whole lot. I think that's going to start to empty out his parachute a little bit. It's going to empty out that gas tank. And we don't know whether Bud is going to have enough to step on that gas pedal at the end of the fight. So I think it's going to be a very patient fight for Errol Spence Jr. He's going to land his punches upstairs. I think he's going to break Bud down to the body. So again, what do the judges look for? Hard, effective body punches or the shoulder punches, because we think that a few times that Spence has lapses in his defense, that's what's going to working in Bud's favor by landing the showier punches. And by the showier punches are the shots that gets the crowd excited, the oohs and the ahs, and it gets people going, and that's going to be in Bud's favor. What's going to be in Spence's favor are those inside body punches that people really don't see. The crowd won't get the ooh and ah for, but when we watch boxing, we actually score body punches. So we can say, yeah, the guy might have landed 2-3, headshots that got the woo factor or they got the crowd into it, but the other guy landed 7 or 8 solid body punches. So that's where I think it's going to be a little bit different. And there's a potential to see a rematch or even a trilogy. So we're definitely excited for that. Again, kudos to both men for stepping up and taking this fight because we actually require this of our fighters. Now, people have compared this fight to Sugar Ray Leonard and Thomas the Hitman Hearns. Both guys are older than Sugar Ray and Thomas Hearns. Both folks have compared this fight to Mayweather-Pacquiao. Mayweather-Pacquiao were a little bit older. We're both older than Spence and Crawford. So we kind of rank this third in terms of welterweight fights between undefeated fighters. And people forget, and let me backtrack a little bit. Fight fans, whoever loses this fight, do not pull your nonsense, well, this guy's a bum now. Again, I know I'm tired of the Mayweather effect from fight fans, where if a guy loses the fight, all of a sudden he's not good anymore. We shut that down after the Ryan Garcia and Tank Davis fight. Whoever wins this fight was a better man on this particular day. I don't want to hear how the other guy was garbage and he wasn't that good and blah, 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 because Twitter assholes, are ready to jump out the woodwork and say, well, this guy was never that good and blah, 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 blah. No, we're not here for that. This is boxing. This is sport. Generally speaking, one guy has to win, one guy has to lose in case there's a draw. So we're not going to do the one guy is bad and he's sorry and he's terrible and blah, 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 blah. No, you pick if Bud fans pick Bud to win the fight, okay, that's great. Spence lost. If we're picking Spence to win the fight, that means we think and believe that Spence is going to win. Cool. We're not going to come out of here and bash either fighter. That's not what we're going to do. And fight fans don't do that. Because people forget, when Ray Leonard fought Thomas Hearns, Sugar Ray Leonard was not undefeated. Remember, he already had his loss against Roberto Duran that was avenged in the No Mas fight. So people tend to forget those facts. Manny Pacquiao had losses before he fought Floyd Mayweather. So again, this fight is in a long line of great welterweight fights. And people think of those two fights. I mean, let us not forget, we've had Oscar De La Hoya versus Ike Quartey. We've had Oscar De La Hoya versus Felix Trinidad. We've had Shane Mosley versus Oscar De La Hoya. So the welterweight division is always a happen division. We always get those iconic classic matches that pretty much the winner will be seen as the best, if not the top pound-for-pound fighter in the world. So we're definitely excited. Win a few times. Definitely let us know what you think. You can definitely shoot us an email at chinchecksportsradio@gmail.com. Once again, it's going to be chinchecksportsradio@gmail.com. Yes, we are having a fight party. Our invitations have been sent out to friends and family, so it's definitely going to be good. You all are followers for Chin Check Sports Radio. You guys definitely are getting a virtual invitation to definitely come and enjoy it. And something that we definitely want to touch on is shout out to the Adams Boxing Show. These brothers are on point. There is nothing like a big fight, ladies and gentlemen. For us fight fans, and they were trying to explain this, there is nothing like the day of a big fight where the entire day is centered on that fight. When you get up, you're feeling good, you're cleaning up the house, you're cooking food, you're doing this. Your whole day, and I can make an argument the day before, is about planning for the night of the big fight. So we are definitely excited. By July the 28th, we're definitely going to be in fight mode. We're shutting everything down to definitely enjoy this fight. So this should be good. You can definitely hit us up, with any comments. And until the next time, the Chin Check Radio, signing out.